Well, good morning, everyone. This is Keith with Positively Osceola. Welcome to another one of our Coffee Club Talk Lives. And I brag on all the cool people we get to talk about and talk to. And this morning, another very cool lady. We have Linda Grruszynski, who is an attorney at Draper Law Office in Kissimmee. And I didn't warn her that I was going to say she was cool, but she was cool. So we said it anyway. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Doing great. Woke up this morning. Had my
on the right side of the grass, right?
That's right. I said somebody the other day I was with somebody and I said, "Hey, it's nice to see you," and they said, "You'd rather be seen than viewed."
True, sometimes.
I'm thinking. So,
okay.
What's today? Thursday or Friday?
Today is Thursday, all day.
It feels like Friday, no doubt.
It does sometimes, but I'm armed too.
I know. Gotta have the coffee, man.
That too.
I've been, people say coffee, when I got older, I started drinking coffee. I'm like, I've been drinking coffee since I was a teenager.
Absolutely. I think I was 14 or 15.
That's the only thing I drank when I was 14 or 15, and it was legal. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whatever. Hey, so we got a few people popping on. So let's go ahead and in a second here, when I get myself located, let's make it official, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, again, we are Positively Osceola, and this is one of our Coffee Club Talk Lives we do quite often. We also have our Daybreak Lives, our Good Morning Osceola, and our Osceola Matters shows, just keeping it fresh as much as we can. But very cool day today. Get to speak to Linda Grruszynski, an attorney at Draper Law Office, and you handle a specific area of law that is extraordinarily important, part of what we all know is part of our lives. And then, as you and I have talked before, and certainly with Charlie Draper, I think made to be even more relevant. I hate to say it that way. More relevant, more obviously necessary to make sure that people have the correct information these days, based upon what pressure COVID-19 placed on family law.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to kind of ask you to kind of go off of that. So, we all know that there is a still kind of a protocols have changed in some ways, maybe
Right.
not in all ways. Why don't you tell us how parenting and maybe dissolution of marriage, divorces, child custody, give us a little bit of a lowdown of how that is affected or has been affected by COVID-19, if you would, please.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. It's been impacted just as in other areas, but the court specifically entered a emergency. Actually, they've entered several standing emergency orders in the 9th district, which covers Osceola and Orange counties. But these emergency orders suspend in-person hearings for non-essential type matters. Emergency things such as injunctions, dependency actions where children are in danger, that sort of thing. The court continued to handle those for basic what we call child custody or decision-making, time-sharing issues. Hearings are being held virtually. Now, courts have gradually been opening up. Different counties do it in a different manner, but by and large, Osceola, Orange, most hearings are still going forward virtually. And the court entered in this, actually, I should say the 9th district entered the standing order, which requires and mandates the parties to an action where there are children involved and there's parental decision-making and time-sharing issues involved, requires them to cooperate, requires them to communicate and jointly determine what is best for their families and for the kids when there are restrictions on movement throughout the community. At one time the schools, in-person schools were canceled, and those have gone back, but they were mandating decent behavior, cooperative behavior, which fortunately among my clients, I didn't have too many crises or allegations of the parties being unable to work these things out. But certainly there were many instances with colleagues I've heard of and what have you, in cases I've read where they can't, the time, one person says, well, we're not supposed to move outside, so I'm keeping the kids until the government lifts restrictions. And the court's saying you can't do that. You need to go forward with your normal parenting and time sharing, unless somebody gets sick. If a child or a parent contracts COVID, then again, you're supposed to communicate, work that out where you quarantine. But the other party who is deprived is in this standing order. The court said you must assume that that person will be given makeup time with the kids. So do what you need to do reasonably, but if somebody unreasonably withholds the kids from another parent, court says there will be sanctions, there will be repercussions once things start to return to normal and we get regular hearings. So it was a clearly worded order, very strong, mandating reasonable behavior, which when I first read it, I thought, okay, good luck. But it seems to have worked out. It has been, my personal experience. There haven't been too many crises.
So let's so you're talking a lot of, what I'm hearing is you're talking about how people continue to react to what the court orders are saying in the way of child custody.
Right.
And basically you're saying nobody can just say, well, COVID's this and COVID's that. I'm not going to listen to anything. I'm just going to do what I think is right. And you're saying no bueno on that, right?
Right. Yes. Or if a parent says we're not supposed to go out, just whatever restrictions there are from the governor or otherwise on free movement. At one time we were much more restricted to the home, and the court was saying you need to go on with the back and forth. You need to, there's no reason the other parent shouldn't have their time with the kids. They'll just stay inside, that sort of thing. But because there are people who would say, well, we're restricted or they can't go to school in person. I'm going to keep them at home and you can't have them. And again, that has passed somewhat. Who knows when this will all be over? If there's another wave, hopefully not, but it could happen. But people are required to reasonably work these things out and exchange the kids unless somebody's sick. That's basically what it comes down to. Somebody gets sick, you stay in, you quarantine until you pass a test, and then the other person gets makeup time. That's really essentially what it comes down to.
Well, so then you answered that question I was going to ask you. So basically it's somewhat common sense and communication. Yes. So if a family is, let's say the mother has 3 children and she's supposed to have the child for the whole month, they test positive, they all test positive. Obviously you're not, that's going to be communication between spouses, I guess.
Right.
They're expecting.
They're expected to convey what happened, child's sick, communicate about the condition, as normally you would, feeling better today or temperature today, no temperature today, that kind of thing. But convey that we're going to quarantine until this date. I'm going to get him or her retested on this date. I'll be back with you then, and then give the result, and then give the child back to the other parent, and then work out makeup time if that parent missed a bunch of time while the child was sick. You're supposed to communicate and work these things out. And again, as I said, I was fortunate. I didn't run into too many issues, but certainly I had colleagues and who ran into problems. And if a parent unreasonably withholds a child during COVID or during, what I'll just call normal times, there are going to be consequences. The parent who was denied the child has to go through a period of waiting because the court system is slow, and now they're backed up. Right. But it's going to come up once you get into court, and that person who unreasonably withheld the children is going to get what I call a verbal spanking sometimes. But the orders, the standing orders say that there will be consequences, and the court will take this type of action into account when deciding permanently where the kids should live more of the time. So you need to behave.
Well, in all cases. So I had somebody ask us when we posted we're going to have the show today, and asked, what are the challenges with multi-state relationships, or when they're on the way to divorce, and they have, and some of the child custody is is going to be complicated because you have multi-state during even this level of pandemic. Certainly, much more travel taking place, but still, the question is there any difference at all when it's multi-state or across state lines? One spouse is in Georgia, one spouse is in Florida. Any difference?
In fact, that just recently came up where I had that type of issue, and I had an Arkansas order that set forth the parenting, the time sharing, and where the child was going to live and going to school. And then the other parent lived here in Florida and had the child for the summer. And then, my client came down from Arkansas to pick up the child, and they were communicating date and time where they were going to meet. And then on the afternoon of that date, the parent who lived here in Florida said, "Well, he's sick. I'm with him in the hospital. I'll be back with you sometime." And child had to get back to Arkansas to start school. But there was a dispute. Obviously, what you have to do is take that Arkansas order, because right now Florida can't enforce in Arkansas or any other state. No state can just automatically enforce another state's order. But if the court is given jurisdiction over that out-of-state order, you have to bring it in. Just to cut to the chase, I had to bring the Arkansas order to Florida, register it, and then the court has the authority and the jurisdiction to enforce it and tell the Florida parent that child is to go back on this day and time. And child ended up missing some school, that sort of thing, but he's back in Arkansas. But as state, you have to register that out-of-state order, and that's a whole process. But register it with Florida, and then Florida has the authority to enforce it. And then it goes back to the other state.
Understood. So let me ask you this. So another thing, this is not a multi-state. We received this question early last night. There isn't, it's not shocking when people's financial or employment situation changes now. So I think if I understood the question correctly, are you seeing much more complication now with people go to court, they understand what the court's saying, and then one of the spouses loses the job. It's and it's seemingly unending. They're not able to replace the job, even though I don't know how. There are a million openings everywhere.
Yes,
but that seems to be what I'm hearing. So, are you seeing a lot of that where things have to be readdressed because the financial or the employment situation is now different post court orders? Are you seeing that much?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The court was, when we had hearings concerning child support or failure to pay child support, one parent was laid off, lost their job, what have you. Court was giving a great deal of, I don't know, leniency or grace is the word, toward the person who was laid off or financial condition had dramatically changed. And when you ended up in a hearing, the court said, "What do you want me to do?" There are many, many people right now laid off. What, as you said, that's changed. There's opportunities everywhere. And now more recently, the court's going to say, okay, what have you done to find a job? They're starting to crack down again on someone's failure, or a parent who's obligated to pay child support or even alimony, as it were. They're cracking down on that now because, as you say, there's job opportunities everywhere, and you are required to make an effort because kids have to eat. Sorry, I'm out of work right now. I'll try to feed you next week. Doesn't really, work. So you're supposed to make a good faith effort, collect cans if you have to. You're supposed to do something and contribute to both parents, contribute to the support of the kids. So there was leniency during the hardest times where many people were laid off. And that leniency is dramatically going away. And of course, it can vary. These aren't hard and fast rules. It can vary according to industry. And if your industry has either gone away or your employer has gone away, that is understandable, but you're required now to make good faith efforts to just get another job until you land in your next permanent one. So,
And I guess I would expect, and certainly you see this, where you would hope the judge would be able to see the situation specifically, and their discernment would be,
right.
Look, you haven't worked in 13 months, buddy, and I drove past 742.
That's right.
Apply within jobs on the way to work.
They use their personal experience. Judges are people, And yeah, that type of thing, I've heard that a very, very similar type thing. I saw 20 opportunities over the weekend just driving around, so common sense, does enter into the equation for sure.
Yeah, I've often thought, I'm like you, working a lot of hours a day, working lots of days. Here we are working again. Sometimes it seems attractive to just walk down to the nearest Starbucks and say, okay, give me the green apron. I want free coffee.
Exactly. Exactly. I'll be in charge of the whipped cream, or whatever, caramel sauce. I know. I refer to, I'm approaching that age, and there may be an encore career, law related. I've just always loved the law, but there's an encore career off in the horizon there somewhere.
I'm loving the title Encore Career. I promise you, I will give you attribution if I say it out loud.
No worries.
So let me ask you this. So let's shift a little bit away from that. So we're going to stay obviously in the parenting, child custody, in that realm that you serve so well at Draper Law. So let's entertain somebody who may either hear this today or the next week or two, and their marriage is not going well. There's struggles. They're worried for some reason. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, whatever the scenario is.
Right.
And they're saying, I want real information. I don't want to just I don't want to just do a Google search.
Right.
I want to speak to somebody who would be my advocate. So Absolutely. What do you say to that person, and how do they reach out to you and say, hey, Linda, this is what's happening? How does that start?
Well, they can call the office, set up a time, make an appointment for a consultation. I'm happy to meet with them. And many times people, as you say, they feel things going south. There's indicators when a relationship breaks down. And again, whether it's paternity or not married and you have a child in common, or it's a divorce situation, you can just gather information to keep in mind. And then, of course, if a relationship can be saved, I always encourage people, think about it, go that route. We're here when you decide you're ready. But you can come in for a consultation and get the information, get prepared, see if there's information at home you need to gather to be prepared. And just call us at the office. It's 407-846-0075, and be happy to set up a time and speak with them.
And so keeping on it, and thank you, and keeping on the subject or the topic of the month. So I'm sure there are, now I'm going to speak this as if it was just ladies. So I know it happens on both sides, but right now, so let's say a young lady or any age woman is now not feeling safe. Mm-hmm. They're concerned that if they go in that realm of not feeling safe, discretion, mm-hmm. being discreet and knowing that it's a discreet conversation. I want to say it goes without saying, but I don't think it does. So obviously an extraordinarily personal scenario, mm-hmm. between you and that person. It does not get to the spouse, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Anyone who I meet with for a consultation of any type, we have that in our database. And just the fact that you came to the office and spoke with myself, another attorney here, Charlie Draper, it's confidential. No one will even find out that you're here. Right. If the other person in the relationship happens to call a day, a week, a month, a year later, we search our entire database going back years, and we can see that that I consulted with you, this potential client.
Right.
And the only thing the other party is told is that we have a conflict. We can't take your appointment. Of course, the natural question is why? What do you mean conflict? I'm sorry. That's all we can say is that we have a conflict and we can't meet with you. So they won't ever know that you were here getting information. And right. Often when somebody's been fearful of the other person seeing their car here or what have you, I'll say we do wills. You're looking into a will, or that tragic situation or dangerous situation is so much on your mind. It's hard to remember or step back and say, I could be in here getting advice about anything. So.
Well said. Well, I mean, so basically you cover, for those who may be dialing in late, so mm-hmm. you cover all areas basically of family law. Why don't you give us just that breakdown of what you cover for us?
Some of the more obvious: dissolution of marriage, establishing and disestablishing paternity, If two people are not married and they have a child, and either party can pursue a paternity action, but it's extremely important for guys. That's the only way to establish their parental rights. So, and then child support, which can pertain to dissolution of marriage or paternity action. And, on occasion, the domestic violence, I don't focus primarily on it. Certainly in family law matters, it arises, and we certainly can handle that. And those are the main areas. Trying to think of any of the more, an enforcement of all of those types of action. If there's been a final judgment entered, but down the road, it could be years down the road, there's some type of enforcement or problem that arises with your situation, whether it's a divorce or paternity action, and you need to enforce or find out what your rights are. Absolutely, we handle those types of actions too, and modification of those final judgments if you need to change it.
Excellent, and that is certainly a valuable part of what goes on at Draper Law Office. Certainly, Draper, Michelle, and Candela also there, hard at work all the time, and everyone else, the whole team, Kristen, and everyone else that's there, always do a great job with the community. I think, when I think Kissimmee, Orlando, St. Cloud, and many legal services, including personal injury, I think Draper Law.
Thank you.
By all means, anyone who might catch this, when you're talking about important issues like you just said, and all the others that are covered, you don't want to be guessing.
Right.
You don't need to just call that big number on the 542,000 commercials that are on TV every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's super important. So we thank you for being here with us today, for sure.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime.
Awesome. I'll remember you said that.
Yeah.
I wrote down encore career.
You're going to remember that for sure.
You know it. I definitely am.
It's a good way to put it. Put a positive spin on it.
There you go. We'll end with that word again. This is Keith. I'm going to play our coffee video on the way out, by the way. I should have told you that. But again, this is Keith with Positively Osceola, along with Linda Grruszynski, attorney at Draper Law Office. Together, we're making a positive difference in and around Osceola County. A little coffee.